Okay. Okay, let's call to order the March 16th, 2021 Conservation Board meeting. It is 6:31, and on the agenda tonight, if I can get the agenda up, we have a few items and a few visitors with us, so welcome everybody. So yeah, we have 3 items on. We'll start with the one on the top. Victor Hills Golf Club conveyance plan on Brace Road. I know we saw this probably about a month ago. So applicant is requesting to subdivide 3.09 acres from a parent parcel of 123 acres. So this is the second and third step in a 3-process major subdivision. I know we acknowledged, as I mentioned, we acknowledged the sketch plan in January, and the action item for tonight, and actually I'm going to take this offline, is to complete the long form, part 2 of that. So I think we have Jack. What else do we have for Victor Hills on tonight? Jack, do we have you?
Yeah.
Just Jack, I guess.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I hear I'm really just checking in to see if you guys have any questions for me on where we're at and what we're doing.
I didn't have any specific. I'm going to open up the file and take a look. Matt or Pat, did you have anything while I look?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Same.
Jack, this is just a continuation. You're just looking to sell off that 3-acre portion, not a building lot right now. Just selling that piece off, right?
Yeah, it's actually a 2.8 acre parcel now. We had it when we had them do the plan. We left a 60-foot strip coming off of Breakaday Road into the main parcel to maintain access to the parcel. It's also the parking area and access for the hiking trail at that point. And one of the reasons we did that is so that we can maintain the parking and the easement. And if we were to ever come into the property that way for an access, we could relocate the parking just inside on the opposite side of the trail, so that there'd always be a parking and access to the trail there. So it just left that control in our hands at the golf course and perpetuated the existing easement there for the hiking trail. So we're still a trail partner at that location. So that was the main reason for reducing the size of the lot, was to maintain that access. The only other thing that came up in my mind, because there's really nothing proposed to be done on the site by this individual. He's buying it at this point to protect his rights of first refusal on the main parcel, and he's also anticipating using that area as a part of his open space if he were to develop some of the other areas of the main parcel. So it doesn't look like there's going to be any real impact to that. On the south side of the trail is a wetland mitigation area. It's under a permit with Army Corps of Engineers and DEC. It's a joint permit. It was a mitigation area, which pretty much locks it up and can't be touched, because it was actually an area we created to offset impacts on other parts of the site when we had everything delineated and they calculated the impacts and what the mitigation should be. The concern about that particular mitigation area is that drains to a tributary to Great Brook, okay, that is a restricted section of stream under state control, but under a federal guideline. It's protected all the way from Mud Creek to Maple Avenue. And that was done because it had a high concentration contamination because of salt and chemical runoff from agricultural uses further upstream from on Great Brook. So the water from that area, the amount of water leaving that area can't be increased by a development running down into Great Brook. I only know all this because I ran into the same problem over on County Road 41, where those two lots, that stream goes all the way down to Great Brook. And that's how I found out there was a protected section of stream. So that's the only, environmentally, from my perspective, that was the only concern I had. On the north side of the trail, that drains to the east, which is toward Mud Creek, or towards Fish Creek, which runs into Mud Creek, and those are not restricted as far as taking the runoff. So that's not, that part of the lot would not drain towards towards Great Brook. So that was my biggest concern, and I just wanted you guys to be aware of that is that stream runs down to Great Brook. So other than that, so doing anything to that wetland area would be very difficult.
Okay. I don't have anything else. I think this is, largely unchanged from the last time we saw this.
Okay.
Yep.
I see Keith, you joined us. Welcome. Anything on this one? We're on the first item, the Victor Hills.
Looks like we're good.
Okay. Well, I think the action here and the agenda here is to complete the long form part 2. I'll fill that out offline so we're not taking everyone's time up, and I'll send that over. But I don't think Jack, I don't think there's any further information or questions we have at this time.
Okay. Can I leave?
You're welcome to keep listening in, but thank you for joining us.
If there's any surprises, just let me know.
Absolutely.
We're I think you guys know me well enough that I'm as concerned about the issue as I are, and I want to do everything we can to protect it.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. If there's any other questions along the way, feel free, come see us.
No problem, and we can take them up at the planning board meeting if we have to.
Yeah, that too. Yep.
Okay, thank you
Thanks,
very
Jack.
much, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Hope you have a short meeting.
Thank you. Okay. Second item here. We have the Brooks in-ground pool. So owner Raymond Brooks is requesting approval to install a 700 square foot in-ground gunite pool in the rear of his property. This parcel is located in the LDD. So that's why we are seeing this. And this is at Hidden Oaks, 7876 Hidden Oaks. Looks like we have someone from Precision. Why don't you give us a quick introduction and overview of what you have here?
My name's Dave. I'm with Precision Pool and Spa. I think we meet the setbacks for normal permit easily everywhere with 50 foot, 107 foot on both side property lines, 507 feet on the rear. It's a wooded lot. She has spoken with the neighbors. This one's a little different for me. I've been to some planning boards, but I've never been to conservation for this issue. I'm not really sure what it is you guys need from me. It's that she removed a few dead trees, nothing significant that was back there. It's minimal patio, and it's an in-ground concrete pool.
Sorry, I got dropped and put on mute there. So I guess, did anyone on the board get a chance to drive by? I know we didn't schedule any site walks or anything like that, but I know, I'm pretty sure this area, it's in the LDD. It's usually, that's an indication there's some sort of natural resource hills or slopes that we have to preserve. I guess that's my biggest question is what kind of topography? It looked flat from that picture, but I mean, I can't really tell. Is there anything, you know?
So where the pool is drops about 10 inches from beginning of pool to the back of the pool, where we're showing the quote unquote grotto looking area in the picture of the pool. We proposed to grade off. I just submitted the updated grading plan, I believe today or yesterday. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to look at that, but we're going to take the spoils and push them off to the west. It drops 8 feet over 100 feet. I'm within 40 feet. We can lose all of the spoils, not disturb anything else. It is a very hilly, it goes down and back up and all over the place back there. But we're not going to disturb the natural grade to anything at all. We're not going to change the grade whatsoever. We're going to shorten that super steep slope off to the side a little bit with the spoils that are there. But I think everything will remain the same as it is now, other than the 700 square foot pool that we're going to install.
What about trees, anything like that? Are you taking anything out? I assume you're putting some landscaping in, looks like.
So she removed 5 or 6 trees 3 or 4 weeks ago. I wasn't a part of that. They were dead. There was the neighbor suggested an arborist. She did not do that. She did not bring anybody in to remove excessive trees at all. Just the dead trees that were around the swimming pool area. Everything the east, I guess, would consider the southeast side of the property. That's all still there. Everything out back is 100% still there. There's some big ones that are dead back there, but would be quite a feat to get out. Some 200-foot oak trees. But for the most part, where the pool is pretty clear. I mean, they're seeing canopy on the overhead giz that I submitted, and it's pretty flat.
So there's no easement on the property. It's just the entire property is in the LDD, Andrew, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, that was my question too, was whether there was any kind of easements. Usually, I mean, typically there isn't over there.
Because the whole area is just limited. Is there any way to bring the pool closer to I was assuming that there was an easement or something to look out for in the back portion of the property. So I was just wondering, is it possible to bring it any closer? I think it's 24 feet from the house, if I remember.
Yeah, we're about 24 feet now. We can bring it in a little bit, 5 or 6 feet, but we do want to give her some space for a walkway to the pool as well. I believe the setback is 10 anyways for the building department. We can't get any closer than 10 feet.
It is, yeah.
So if you want us, I mean, we can pull it in a little bit if that's what you want to see.
I don't want to make it any more difficult for you. If it's not, pulling it away from the easement.
I didn't know there was an easement. If there on the survey that I had, I didn't see any easements.
You're right. Might not be.
I don't think. No, I don't. I was going to check that, but I don't think there is.
Okay.
But generally speaking, I mean, if we can try to limit the amount of exposure, but yeah, I mean, I guess we'd have to look. I definitely want to give enough leeway and use for the pool. So 24 feet. I'm just looking back at my pool right there. And that's probably about, that's about right. So,
Then
She's
the
not putting
spoils,
any-
go ahead.
She's not putting any patio on the backside of the pool whatsoever. It's only gonna be from the right side where the entryway back to the house, about 12 or 13 feet. The rest will be green space. There's gonna be zero patio behind the pool. She's actually gonna replant some more trees to make that look more natural behind the grotto slide area.
Mhm. And where you're putting the spoils, you mentioned behind the pool, you'll go back as far as you need to. You're going to keep the same grade and just kind of lock up. There's no trees or anything that are coming down for that. You're just,
Right.
it's just grass right now or some kind of meadow.
It's just foliage from the trees, a lot of leaves and dead limbs. We're gonna, right now, the pool existing grades about 8 to 10 inches out. Where it slopes down, we're just gonna bring them back up to grade and slope them off to the right and back in that valley that's shown in the grade plan.
Okay.
But we're not changing the existing grade at all.
And then is there any, so you mentioned it's very hilly back there. Is there any water running through there that we need to protect from the dirt from the project?
It goes all over the place. So as we get farther back, it goes way up, about 70 feet up. As it goes to the left, it drops off. As it goes to the right, it drops off. But it does continue to roll up and down. It's very rolly hills, like he said.
Mhm.
There's no like natural swale per se in any way for the water to run. It just goes wherever it goes back there. It's up and down and back and forth. But
Okay.
everybody's being very conscious right now, all the towns with water. And we are too. We're aware of that. This is not going to change the water movement at all. If the pool wasn't there, it wouldn't change.
Speaking of
Okay.
water, what's the water table look like over there? How high is it?
Oh, where the pool is, just to the immediate area to the left and right, we're at least 11 feet above the swales that drop down. Now, if you go back about 60, 70 feet, it goes up considerably, substantially. So it drops off and then it goes, it's a huge hill. There was a 200-foot, 3-foot trunk oak tree back there that's dying. And he said he would have to drag it down the hill. So he made the assumption to look at it and say, if it falls, it's going to fall away from the pool. It's not going to fall towards the house. Just let it be and let it do its thing. So we didn't disturb anything else.
I know when I did my pool, I had a lot of digging it out, and I had to, there was some management of the water. This might be a moot point, similar to where I am, where there's no close neighbors. But what's your plan for, I guess, water egress and I guess if you have some sort of spout system, or that's probably not the right term, but do you have some sort of management system for that?
So with all of the gunite pools, we use what's called a hydrostatic relief valve to allow water to come in.
Mhm.
If we have any groundwater that could potentially pop the swimming pool, it will actually come into the pool first, versus some of the other pools that'll lift a liner or pop a fiberglass. With a gunite pool, it has a valve in the bottom that's spring loaded 5 psi. So if the pressure under the pool gets above 5 psi, it will actually open and allow the water to come into the swimming pool. Under construction, we're so much higher than everything. There's gonna have to be a lot of clay under there and a serious spring for us to hit water. It just drops off too much off to the sides for us to probably hit groundwater.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Not for me.
Same here.
I'm good.
Yeah, I don't think, I guess the biggest thing, are you going to mark the areas of disturbance? I guess that would be my only.
We certainly can.
Okay. Yeah, usually that's pretty standard, is to mark the areas of disturbance, with the silt fence. And when are you looking to start this and finish this project?
We didn't anticipate this happening. So actually it pulls as a Pittsford address. So this all came up at the last minute. She actually wanted to start the project about a week ago. That's not going to happen. Obviously, we still have to go through building permit too. I told her that if we can get into the first couple weeks of April, that would be great. However, I'm at your mercy.
So while Andrew's chasing babies, I mean, it sounds like that those are only comments. Just when we've got some of these areas that are these limited development district, it's just very, very sensitive areas. So we want to limit building or moving of anything as much as absolute possible. So sounds like you're doing that as much as you can. So I mean, I think those would be our only comments, like what Andrew mentioned, just marking the limits of disturbance and not changing the grade at all as you're moving the excess dirt out. And I think that's it. Andrew, now you're back. Anything?
No, I think that's
Okay.
that covers it all.
I'm sure Alan will, I mean, he's gonna probably call out silt fence in the building permit also. That's
Yep.
pretty standard. So I would assume that some silt fence is gonna show up on the hilly areas that where the soils. It's not a substantial amount of soil. The pool's not really deep. But we will certainly paint the pool out. If you guys want to look at the pool area, we can paint that out for you guys to see if you want to see it. I purposely did the GIS image so it would be a little easier from a satellite view for you guys to see what was really going on. Whatever you need, we'll get it done. I live in Victor too, so I understand.
Yeah, I think we're all set. If there's any other questions that you have for us, certainly, vet them through Kim and the planning department, but it sounds like you've done enough homework, and I think, well, good luck to you with everything.
We'll get it done. It'll be a nice pool.
Sure, looks nice.
Wonderful. Well, thanks guys. If you need anything else from me.
All set. You're welcome to
Thank you.
stick around. If not, thank you for joining, and have a good evening.
All right. Let me know if you guys need anything. Thank you. Have a good meeting.
Thanks.
Take
Yeah.
care. Okay, let me pull up the third item here. All right, so we have Wilkins RV site development. So applicant is requesting approval to demolish the existing 13,300 square foot showroom and conduct a new larger 18,560 square foot showroom that will be attached to the existing service building. So the existing two entrances will be removed and a new consolidated entrance will be installed. Action on this one, again, I'll take this one offline, short form part 2. So who do we have from Wilkins with us tonight?
Good evening. This is Alex Amering. I'm with Costage Engineering. With me is Denise Haggerty from Wilkins and also Brian Wilkins. And I think we also have Kevin Bragg, who's going to be the construction manager on the project. So,
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. If you could give us a quick overview of what the project is. I have a little input from Al and the planning department, but I think the board and myself would appreciate a little narrative on this project.
certainly. Obviously, this is the former Ballantine RV facility. Wilkins took over ownership. They approached us about some improvements to the site. Kind of driving the whole proposal is the opportunity to combine the showroom building with the service building. As you know, today they're two separate buildings, which isn't the most efficient operation for them. With that, they also have two entrances. We'd be looking to move the entrance. We've already engaged New York State DOT on that process. Right off the bat, one of the items that came up obviously was the wetlands in the rear of the property. It's a New York State wetland. We went ahead and hired a wetland consultant who has already met with New York State DEC. They've completed the process for the delineation. You'll see the delineation is shown on the site plans, along with the 100-foot buffer that goes with it. I think this scenario is pretty clear where the wetland is kind of reformed around the rear of the project. The developed area is obviously higher than the wetland. So along with that, the parking areas out there are kind of a mix of gravel, pavement, some pavement that's kind of deteriorated. We would be looking to do a bunch of maintenance as far as repaving, bringing the parking areas up to kind of their current standard with new asphalt. With that, obviously, we're aware of the DEC requirements for redevelopment projects. So we've introduced the number of components. You'll see a new pond at the eastern portion of the project that would serve for water quality and peak flow attenuation. And we've also introduced a couple of rain gardens kind of at the rear of the project. It's a natural location where the wetland buffer is. So it would be adjacent to the wetland. There's not a whole lot of storm sewers or treatment out there today. It was obviously constructed years and years before, any of the DEC requirements. Along those same lines, they were looking for some security for the display vehicles. So we would be looking to introduce decorative aluminum fencing. The product they've used is actually very similar to one that's just up the street at the storage facility, which is just east of ours. It would be painted black. Although it serves security purposes, it's also, more attractive and decorative. Along those same lines, we've introduced some street trees kind of spread along the front of the property, so it doesn't completely, block off any view, but it does kind of break up the frontage. The rest of the property, they have sewer, they have water. There are some lighting upgrades, which we would be looking to go LED with those. We're aware of the dark sky compliant, requirements in most towns nowadays. So all in all, we kind of went into this. Obviously, we're moving one building and kind of putting it somewhere else on the site, and we're looking for opportunities to kind of spruce it up and create a more aesthetic project for both our client and hopefully the town also. So one correction, I guess, right off the bat, since I know this board reviews the EAFs, item number 2 was incorrectly checked as no other agencies would require permits, although we did list the wetland permit, the DOT permit, and the DEC speedies permit. So I will make that revision and get a copy back to Kim in the planning board. So just wanted to get ahead on that item. So
Gotcha. Thank you.
I guess I'll stop talking now, and I'm sure any of the operational items certainly Denise or Brian can address, and any engineering items, let me know. So
Yeah, anytime there's wetlands involved, it definitely perks our ears and our interest here. So, that's certainly, going to be an area of interest for us. So I think you're doing the right things with the the green infrastructure, and then the stormwater management pond or facilities. So I think that's good. I guess Matt or anyone else, any questions or comments?
I was wondering if you're expanding on the pavement. I know you're going to be making some updates and just kind of cleaning it up, fixing it up. Are you going to be paving more than what you've currently got?
Nope. So that was obviously part of the exercise. We do the surveying ourselves right off the bat. We went out there and identified all of the parking areas that are pavement or gravel today. And everything we show on our site plan is working within the existing parking areas. In the rear, we're actually taking some of the gravel parking area and returning it to a more natural state, kind of where the rain gardens are. In going through the DEC process, we're going to have to kind of show the hardships that, will allow us to get the permit back there. So that will be one of the items we'll be looking to, appease them for the permit. And we're also going to be adding some fencing around the perimeter of the project. So, no further encroachments would, be practical.
And then the trees in the front, which I think is nice, because I know right now it's kind of wide open right off the 96. So that'll be nice to give a little bit of a visual buffer. We just encourage you to use a native plant manual when you're looking at those, those pieces there to make sure you've got stuff there that that'll suit it and that'll survive there right along 96. That's a tough area.
Yeah, we also do all our own landscape architecture in-house, and I made sure the folks working on that were familiar with, I think, the 70% requirement the code has, and we'll also make sure it's something that's salt tolerant since they are very close to the road. So
yeah,
we appreciate that.
Excellent. I mean, other than that, for me, obviously the wetlands is the big area, but otherwise, if you're using the same or even a slightly smaller footprint, I don't have any concerns, right? There's no other trees coming out, no other disturbance of anything. So looks good. Thank you.
Keith, Pat?
No, I think he's pretty much covered everything.
Well, only other thing that I was thinking about, guys, and actually Denise or Brian, maybe you can answer this. I'm assuming probably all service vehicles will be inside the service center. We're just thinking about like leaking fluids and stuff like that in the wetland. Presuming everything will be inside, right? That's being worked on.
Anything that would be being worked on, yes,
Hopefully.
would be inside the service center.
Perfect.
Anything certainly with an active leak. We do have service units that are outside that get dropped off, but
Sure.
we're pretty consciously aware if they told us that there was some kind of leak that, yes, we would make sure
Okay,
that
perfect.
it's not leaking actively outside or inside for that fact. We would,
Yeah,
right?
right. Makes sense. And then I was just curious, guys, should we do a site walk of this? Or is it not necessary?
I think it's a good idea. It's I think it's fairly central to everyone, easy to get to. So yeah, I think so. What's your I guess, Alex, what's the schedule look like? When's your next meeting? And because we'd like to get out there, give some real-time feedback to the planning board if we can.
I believe the planning board meeting's on April 13th.
Okay. Then I guess we'll take a look at the calendar and Kim Reese will probably, she'll be back in touch with you. I think our next meeting is the first Tuesday. So the first Tuesday in April, which off the top of my head, I can't think of. But I would like to do it before that meeting so that we can come back as a board and discuss internally.
Yep. Yeah, from an overall project standpoint, the parcels, I think it's about 24 acres and we're working on about 9 acres, but there really isn't any, additional development potential for that. It's, when you look at the wetlands and all that, and even, the project, you know, the lot coverages and stuff come back very small because it is such a large parcel. It's unfortunately just kind of been squeezed between Omnitech and, you know, I think the old railroad's back there to the rear, so.
Yeah, I think your biggest, I guess, probably hurdle at this point, you know, once you get into execution, will probably be how to manage that water. Because I know that particular swath between 96 there and the railroad bed is fairly, you know, the water's going to be there, and it's the water table's fairly high. So, so I think that'll be, you know, having a good plan coming into that is going to pay off for you.
Yep, we'll be working with a geotechnical consultant who will probably be doing borings, you know, so we'll have, you know, good groundwater information, and also they'll want to probably see how much, you know, sub-base is under the parking lots and that kind of thing. So
Gotcha. Okay.
the good news is there won't be any basements in the building or that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I'll be slab on grade.
There was one building that we saw, I think, well, it was before my time. And Matt knows what I'm talking about. In that area, just up the road from me, that was.
I think we worked on that project. If it's an office, medical office, I think I know what you're talking about. So.
Well, thank you. I don't know. I don't have any other questions. Sounds like the board is, they've gotten their feedback. So we'll be back in touch with you on a Sidewalk. And, you know, if there's any other questions or comments that you have for us, you know, feel free to reach out to Kim. You know, use us as a resource.
No, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Okay, so we have a couple other items here. Or folks, I know Ian Love, you're joined us, and Kyle Corman, you've joined us. Just by, you know, which application came in first. Ian will listen in, and then Kyle will pivot over to you and listen into your. Just to give you a little background on the conservation board. So we're an advisory board to the planning board. So any new projects, you know, relative, you know, to any kind of disruptions to conservation, any kind of natural resources, you know, all the projects, whether it's a large commercial building or development, or, you know, as you see tonight, there were several, there was the in-ground pool that came before us in the limited development district. You know, so anytime those kinds of projects, they're going to come to us and ask for our input. Again, we're advisory. We don't have any kind of real teeth, if you will. You know, we're advising the planning board so that they can, you know, ultimately, you know, make the decisions on permits and, you know, anything of that nature. So with that known, Ian, I understand that you had concerns over some residual spray coming off the thruway, coming on your property. Why don't you give us a little background narrative on that? And if you have any pictures or information, feel free. I'd like to see it. So I'm going to hand the ball over to you.
Hi, thanks. How's it going? I just wanted to reach out to you. Okay, so you guys have my photos. Perfect. I was going to reach out to you guys and just express my concern. You know, I'm a recent resident here, just bought my home, and the home's only 2 years old. And I am pretty close to the thruway. There is an empty parcel of land next to me. And then from that point, it's probably maybe about 50 feet higher up in the air is the thruway. I would say the thruway is very close to being level with the second floor of my home. So, you know, if I'm in the second floor of the home, looking out the window. It's almost eye level with the thruway. Just to give you a perspective, the thruway does sit much higher than my property sits at. So because I sit down a lot lower, and there's really no barrier on the thruway at all. They have a guardrail, but they did away with like their 4-foot high barriers when they removed the Easy Pass tolls in the Victor station. And since that point, it just seems like a lot of road crime, I guess is the best way to call it, seems to be kind of rolling down that hill onto our property. It's kind of tough for me to show evidence of it on, finding salt on a tree. So the best thing for me to do was just to shoot you guys a picture of what, my back dining room window looks like, for example. My assumption would be that if that much road brine is making its way to my windows, then it's also got to be making its way to the creek in our backyard and a lot of the trees that are back there that seem to be dying out. I don't know what the fix for this really is. The only resolution to fix something like this, if it is coming down from such a steep point, would be to try to have some type of maybe barrier installed by the thruway or a type of berm with trees like we see a little bit further up on Lane Road near the school. I don't know. I might not have a leg to stand on, but I thought it was at least worth bringing to your attention and seeing what you guys think.
Yeah, I'm just looking at I'm looking at your subdivision map here. So you're lot 1, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're the lot furthest to the north, closest to a thruway. And is there another lot in between you?
So
And-
in between me and the thruway, there is a lot. The neighbor has like a pole barn across the street, and then next to me is completely empty.
Okay.
And then right where my grass stops and the woods begin, there's a sign that says conservation easement. So that's really how I thought to reach out maybe to you guys and get guidance on this.
Right. So approximately how far is your house from the thruway, from the edge of the thruway?
Maybe 50 yards,
So about 150, 200 feet.
half a football field.
Are your neighbors seeing the same problem? Are they, I guess, in particular, probably the neighbor to the north there? Are they seeing anything similar?
I haven't asked them that. Something I could certainly do. It's just been a little quieter with COVID lately.
Sure. Yeah, understood. What about a natural barrier, trees of sorts? And I understand that it takes time for trees to grow, and you're
Right.
a little
So
bit.
currently I have probably about 10 trees that are in between me and the thruway, but they're probably only 5 to 6 feet tall. They're not really grown out, and they're not really like a pine tree, so they're not thick in the winter when they need to be.
Mhm. Okay, and your conservation easement, I'm looking at the site map and I don't, board guys, I don't know if you looked at this either, but is the conservation easement the western portion of your property? Let's see.
It would be the whole western back end of it. So, it's almost half the backyard.
Okay, I think I see it. Yeah, I see where
The conservation easement starts right before the creek.
Yeah, okay. Is that conservation easement just covering the creek, and then it
It goes all the way up to Lane Road where there's like a fenced walkway.
Okay. All right. I think I see it. But it goes all the way back, to your back property line, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, I see it. So I guess, what are you looking for the board to I guess, advise on tonight?
I reached out to the town of Victor and they put me in touch with you guys. There is a very good chance that there's a different route that I need to proceed. And if that's the case, it's okay. Just tell me the right direction to go. Really ultimately what I'd like to see is the thruway take some type of action and putting some type of concrete barrier along the edge there. So that way all the road debris and road grime's not by nature of 3 cars lane, three lanes wide going 70 miles an hour. By nature, it's not just rolling down the hill and coming down into this land. Just a 4-foot high barrier might work. Ideally I'd love to see an 18-foot wall, but that's probably never going to happen. You know what I mean? I have to be realistic. But I don't know. You tell me, Andrew, what's the best place to start, or do I just kind of leave it alone and have Fish Window Cleaning come clean my house every year?
I want to do a little research and background on this.
It's definitely worth, if you have time and you're ever in the area, it's maybe worth just a site visit, drive down the private drive, just take a look at the different elevation change and see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I drive by on the thruway probably every day
So you probably see my house. It's right next to the Canandaigua sign.
Yeah, I get it.
So it's your fault, Andrew.
Partly, yes.
I mean,
Stop
my
putting
house.
salt on his lawn.
If you see the Canandaigua sign, you can see my house. It's right next to it.
I'm on Brownsville, so I share your pain.
But I just think with the speed of the vehicles, it's just rolling down the hill.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I personally would like to see it, and I'd like to do a little research. I don't think I can give you any, definitive path here. Matt, Pat, Keith, I don't know if you had a chance to sink your teeth into this one, but what do you think? What's your thoughts there?
I haven't, but Ian, I have a question to ask you. Have you seen any notable debris during any of the different seasons that was very noticeable? So in other words, like you see more stuff in the winter as opposed to spring, summer, or not really. You just basically have the evidence of just your windows showing residue from runoff, so to speak. So what we're dealing with.
That's a great question. So to answer that question, Keith, we moved into this home in September. So this is my first winter here. And they had the concrete 4-foot high barriers up right before winter started and then took them away. So I couldn't say, hey, when the concrete barriers were there, it worked better, because I wasn't here when they were up during a full winter. And I haven't seen a different season to tell you, what would be occurring in different times, unfortunately.
And I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to take a look at it, but the lawn condition, you have lawn both in the front and the rear of the house?
What was that? Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry. Do you have, I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to take a look at the picture, but do you have like lawn between you and the thruway and lawn after your house and your access to the house, like your drive?
Yes.
They're different in the condition of the lawn in the two areas, or they're kind of similar?
You were cutting out a little bit,
So,
I'll answer the question the best I can. There's lawn, there's 30 yards of it's either 30 feet or 30 yards, which I know is a big difference. I apologize, of grass off the side of my garage to probably an equal amount of brush that follows that up to the thruway. I also have a grassed front yard and a grassed backyard. And as far as seeing like runoff and spillage, it seems to be on the side of the house that faces the thruway and the back of the house, and somewhat of the front. The only side of my house that doesn't have salt on it is the side that is completely opposite of the thruway.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Keith.
No, I'm just saying, Andrew, I think it would be nice to see for ourselves so that we can provide whatever support we can. for the scenario. But again, we'll have to do research to see, make sure that we can provide the appropriate guidance as best as possible.
Yeah, I think, if we're gonna get out there, we should do it while they're putting salt down, so for the next several weeks here, well, a few weeks, hopefully not that long, but.
Matt was about to say something.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. I just had two thoughts. I mean, I don't think there's anything that this board can do, so I'm trying to think of ways we can help you, right? Because we don't have any power to do anything. So, I mean, one thought I had was, I'm not sure if you're able to have any contact with the prior owner to just simply ask them if they saw the same issue, because again, they took the barriers down, and frankly, we've had a couple of easy winners, but then February, right? So just to find out if it's something that was going on before or after, because maybe that'll lead you to, hey, I only need those 4-foot barriers back, or this has been an issue forever. And then my other thought was just there must be some kind of precedent, right, with the state. There's other homes along the thruway. So do they take any do they accept any liability for that, or do they not? There must be some precedent. I'm positive you're not the first person that said, hey, there's a lot of road spray coming off this thing. So I'm wondering what their position is on it. Like, do you file a claim and that's it? Or do they say, sorry, nothing we can do?
You should have bought a house there.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully that's not what they, hopefully that's not,
Right. Right.
as residents, right, we're their clients. So we would hope
Right.
they wouldn't treat us that way, but they probably would. But you probably went and saw it, like you said, you moved in September, right? So you're there late summer.
I saw it. I mean, I
beautiful.
saw it when all the trees were full of leaves and everything. Then next thing you know, fall happens, and I'm like, holy cow, headlights are beaming me in bed. And aside from that, my house is covered in salt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are my only thoughts,
Yeah.
see where we can help direct you at least.
Okay. And would it be possible for me to maybe have one of your email, just to reach out to you afterwards regarding, that route? And if, if Andrew, if a site visit would help you maybe evaluate the right direction for me to approach, someone else, that would be great.
Yeah. I think in the back and forth, I think I have your email, so I can reach out and certainly stay in touch with Kim on that too.
Okay.
I'm thinking just in our area, I'm thinking just along Lane Road there that backs to it. I know height probably has something to do with this, but I know there's that ranch home by the school bus garage that would be on the same side of the thruway, and there's a farmhouse at the corner of up farther. So I'm just wondering, there's got to be some other folks that potentially have experienced that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think the action for tonight is to do a little research. Ian, I can give you my email or I can reach out to you. I think I have yours. So
yeah, you can just reach out to me and then I'll respond. That would be great.
Okay. I
appreciate your guys' time. I really do. Thank you for hearing me and trying to point me in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Sure. Pat, do you have anything to add?
No.
Not really.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if you said Pat or Ed. My bad. But
either one.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right. You too.
Thanks.
Okay, Kyle. How you doing tonight?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us. So I understand you were at the town board meeting about a week ago, and there was some questions over a fence and at least the addition of a fence and a conservation easement. And I think you heard from the initial part, or at least this right before Ian jumped on, a little bit about who we are and what we have, in terms of powers, if you will. We're an advisory board. So, we're taking direction from the planning board, from the town board, to weigh in on any kind of conservation related items. Easements being one of them, obviously. So I guess, I think the decision's been made, in terms, of the direction to go on I guess the fence, and Ed, feel free to jump in if I'm wrong here, but I think what we want to try to help do tonight is help you understand, if there are any other items that or perspectives that you can look at, with everything. So again, Ed, feel free to jump in. Kyle, if there's any more details or information you want to add, I'm going to give you the floor.
Sure, I appreciate that. I'll just start with a quick intro. I think you guys mostly might have gotten the intro if you watched the town board meeting last week, but Kyle Corman, I live at 7740 Pine Tree Drive. That's a part of the Evergreen Meadows subdivision, which is subject to a conservation easement. And I was looking to request a variance to have a fence put up around the border of my property. And I wanted to start off by saying that, I did go to the town board last week. And the reason why, and as you know, a decision's been made based upon all the information that I brought to that meeting, which I personally thought was compelling, and was also evidenced by the responses I got from the council members and how unique it was. But I'm here because I don't feel like I got the level of support or any sort of logical reasoning from them. There's a couple things that sort of necessitated me coming to you guys first. I know I'm sort of attempting to rewind the clocks a bit here and look for some advice from you guys first that would flow through to planning board and the town probably ultimately. But the new information, and it really was just coming off the heels of how I felt leaving the meeting last week, where it was kind of my first experience working with the town, and I just didn't feel like either my situation was fully heard or understood, or that there was any willingness or open-mindedness to come up with a true solution. So I mean, if you go back, and it wasn't until I went back and watched it where I really started to see that I think I was walking into a room with a lot of closed off minds of people who already had their minds made up. I want to start off by saying that, I noticed, I think, Ed, you had noted around the 29-minute mark or somewhere in that time frame that you had spoken with the conservation board and they were not in support of my request. I don't know if that was a general comment that you made or a specific one, but if it was specific, I'm not sure how it could have been because I hadn't had the chance to relay my case to the conservation board, but I'm assuming you must have meant a general, in the general sense that, you maybe were thinking that they wouldn't grant this request, but it caused me to kind of go back.
Kyle, I think what I said was that I was liaison to the conservation board, and that, in most cases, we don't like to, again, speaking on behalf of the town board, and with the fact that I am the liaison to the conservation board, that we don't like to, and we have turned down other people regarding requests to go into easements, because the reason we put those in place, and there's certainly couple different kinds of easements. There's a less restrictive, a more restrictive, et cetera. And, in general, the conservation board tries to maintain those. And so I think that's what I was trying to get across.
Okay. I like I said, I was giving you the benefit of the doubt that you're probably speaking in a general sense because you've seen these come through before, but I guess I would say, why even offer the privilege of the floor if there's no scenario where you could grant any kind of variance or exception to a conservation easement? That would be number one. Number two is I noticed from everyone on the board use the word unique. Everyone acknowledged that the situation that we're sort of subject to in our back lawn is a safety hazard. And as I noted, I have a child with one eye that is, doesn't work as well as the other, so it causes him to trip a lot. And for the record, once again, I really do not like talking personally about my family unless I truly think I have an ability to make a situation better for them. So I just want to note that this is not an easy thing to talk about, but I'll do it. Everyone acknowledged how unique the situation was, but then they followed it up with that would open up the floodgates for granting everyone else's request. So I kind of saw those two comments as mutually exclusive. So either the situation is unique and you're going to grant a variance request, or the situation is not unique and you're not going to grant it. But if you find a unique situation, I mean, I don't know how many people have wire fences with chain link sticking out to poke people's eyes out with children with a bad eye and a flight risk dog. I don't know how many situations are that are going to open up floodgates for that type of scenario. I welcome everyone here on this call to come to my property and take a look at the situation that I'm in. Last year was not an easy year in our backyard. And, you know, I also wanted to kind of follow up with the thing that stuck out to me the most, and I didn't get an opportunity to bring this up at the town council, was I received a phone call from the town supervisor, Jack Marin, at 11:55 that day. And it was sort of a prep call. I saw it as a courtesy call. It lasted about 12 minutes long. And he told me that he was going to propose something to you that would get your support. He gave me every indication on the call that I'd be granted approval if I was willing to do the following. Sign a hold harmless agreement. And that was number one that was cited on the agenda. But in further consideration of granting my request, he said that if I sign something to the effect of, until my children are grown up and no longer, you know, subject to tripping and falling on fences without severely hurting themselves, and or until I, you know, didn't have a dog anymore, then I would take the fence out. I thought it was a fair compromise to say that if I ever sell the property, I'll take the fence out, and that I shouldn't really be bound to, you know, pumping out kids or having a dog at home all the time just to keep a fence up. I didn't see that as totally reasonable. But I ended the call with Jack shortly after noon, where he said that I would get conditional approval from your council, your town board, if I agreed to those terms. At the time when I left the meeting, I didn't bring it up, and I'm bringing it up now. And I'm looking for some level of relief or a creative solution here that could be helpful, because it didn't feel right leaving the meeting based upon the comments that I received from the board. I'll pause there.
Okay, well, obviously I can't speak to the phone call that I wasn't a part of. I don't know what, you know, Jack told you or didn't tell you. So, you know, this is new information that wasn't brought up at the town board, so.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. But again, you know, that the conservation board, you know, they could speak for themselves. But, you know, as they said, they're more an advisory board. They do not have the ability to grant, you know, you relief, but they can certainly advise you on what the easement means. You know,
I know what the easement means. I've got the language up in front of me. I filled out a FOIL request and received all the documents that are there. And included in it is a clause. I'm getting it pulled up. The fifth on the second page, it says all lands within the deed restrictive areas as shown on the filed subdivision map shall remain in their natural condition and undisturbed, with the exception of removing or altering features, which I think conflicts with some of the things that even the council members, you know, including yourself, said at the meeting last week. So I think it's kind of time, and I'm hoping that if nothing else, I can bring this to light right now to start taking a closer look at some of these conservation easements. I don't think all of them are created equally, and I don't think every person's situation is created equally. And if we're going to allow, you know, members of the town to state their request, there should be some amount of consideration for unique situations. Otherwise, it's just a patronizing activity. And that's what I felt like I got last week. And that's why I'm attempting to revisit it with new information. Any comments on that?
So
No, I
Kyle, I guess I'll mention, similar to what Ed was saying, we're an advisory board. We're here to help interpret, help guide, basically, understand what the conservation easement says, both, in its essence and both practically. So I will say, there's been some situations where, we as a town or, as an organization probably could have done a little better, but, we've recognized that. And I think moving forward, we're doing our best to try to educate and get the word out and have folks know what an easement is, what you can and can't do. One of the big things that's important to me personally, because I went through this, probably 4 years ago when I bought my piece of property here in Victor and built and, did all the fun stuff, was, my builder did not tell me anything about that. Or, in some cases, maybe in your case, a real estate agent didn't tell you anything about what was back there. Maybe they said it was an easement. Perhaps they said there's something back there. There needs to be a better job. I'll say, and because this is part of it, all around of everyone to do a better job understanding what an easement is. Where are they, for one, what it means, and what you can and can't do. There are different types of easements. You're right. There's most restrictive, which are kind of natural resource specific. You can't do anything. You can't mow the lawn. You can't. There's essentially not much you can do in there. And then there's site specific, where you can change. There's specific wording and clauses you can put in. Still can't build anything. You can't put anything permanent up. There are still restrictions there. So I guess that's my comment there. I would personally like to look at your easement language, which we can as a board take a look at. I don't want to do it tonight because it really requires a deep dive, and I think it requires this team to really do a deep dive, discussion and understand what we can and can't do in that area. So
do you guys have a copy of the easement?
I didn't. Did you guys see one in the Dropbox? I know I had asked for one. It might have been a little too late.
I haven't seen it yet. I mean, we have access to it, so we can get it. I just don't think we received it to be able to prep for tonight's meeting.
Sure. Well, I definitely want to keep. I just don't want to close the door on this, guys. I mean, in hindsight, I hear a lot of this is, what could have been done, what should have been done. And I agree with you. I mean, when I bought the house, my realtor was like, yeah, it's an easement. There's an easement back there. Okay. All right. Well, go check out the living room. And that was kind of the extent of that. But then I found out, and the reason why, I'll tell you how I found out that there was an easement. And just to demonstrate that I'm not just trying to cause problems or a rift or anything, I understand what conservation easements are, and I agree with them. I'm all for land preservation, and I found out what my true conservation easement meant on my property when I went to go get a shed put up this time last year. It was around April. And I staked out a couple locations for it. It's very undulated back here, so there's very few spots to put it. And the most logical one was a spot that I staked out, and I brought in Al Benedict, and I said, "How's that look?" And he said, "You can't do that. There's an easement there." I said, "What's an easement?" And then we got to this point, and rather than proceed, I moved it. I picked a different location. I staked it out. I mapped it out from the setback on my neighbor's property. I brought Al back out. He said, "Yep, looks good." Tom also came out. I double checked with him. He looked, and then I had it inspected by Marty. And I went through all the motions. I filled out the building permit, paid my fee. I followed the town ordinance for building a fence. And I'm trying to do the right thing here. And, I'm not putting up a privacy fence or a chain link fence or anything that's not in keeping with the natural landscape of the area. It's a wooden post going into a hole in the ground connected by wooden split rails. I mean, that's the extent of it. I think I know that I provided a picture of it in my building permit and my fence application. And I also provided it to Kim, I think, for this meeting. There should be a copy of it. It's very natural looking. It's not going to disturb the natural beauty or landscape of the area. And I think it's time to revisit some of these easements, this one in particular, because I don't have usability, full usability of my property. And part two of the conservation easement, the grantor for itself, its successor, and assigns an interest reserves the full use and enjoyment of the premises. There's a little more after that, but I don't have full use of it. Last year, if I wanted to bring my dog outside, I had to have him on a tether, and my kid had to be inside because he could potentially get clotheslined in it. So I'd have a screaming kid in my window while I'm throwing a frisbee for my dog, and then we'd switch. And then I'd go inside with my dog, and my wife would go outside and play with our kid, and our dog would bark because he can't go outside and play with my son. That's not any kind of use or enjoyment at all. The four of us have never been able to be outside together without me standing over top of my son to make sure that he doesn't run in the path of where my dog is on his 30-foot lead. And I'm a conscious adult, and I've been clipped by that lead a few different times, and ended up with welts. And a welt on my body is no big deal, but if that was my kid, that is something very, very different that I don't even want to think about. And I've had to think about it before and bring it up to the town council board last week. And it's time to do a deeper look at this and see if there's any sort of codicils or amendments that can be made to it to allow for very, very minimalist types of considerations, like a fence, not like a shed, not like a pool, not a barn or a pole barn, but I don't think a fence is anything crazy to ask. I truly don't.
So let's take a look at it. I mean, the only comment I'd say is we've literally had folks on this meeting saying the exact same thing as you, only they're saying, I'm just putting up a shed. It's not like I'm putting up a fence. So that's why we try not to, these things go on the land before we buy them. When someone says, I'm going to sell my land, and then the builder comes in and says, okay, I'm going to subdivide it like this. We look at what's there. We figure out what we want to protect. We protect it. And then the builder puts their lines down on the ground. So it's really hard now to come back, because then, everybody has a unique situation, right? So if we don't have the precedent, then we have kind of nothing. And then, and then we, then it just really opens it up. So let's definitely take a look. Like Andrew said, let's put it on our next agenda, I would think, Andrew, not to speak for you, but so we can look and see if there's any way to make it work. I mean, for instance, Kyle, when, I know you felt like somebody, we were just, or the town in general was just giving you the freedom to speak. So you felt like you had the freedom to speak, but they weren't actually going to do anything. We did have a situation where there was a mistake made by a builder, and an easement went like straight across the corner of the person's home. I mean, literally they had no lawn. It went straight across their home. They made a mistake there. And so we went out, we did a site walk, and we said, oh my God, this is, it's literally goes to the edge of their home. It physically touched their house. So, we suggested possibly that we move that. But that was more or less a mistake. I don't see so far that this is a mistake. It's just something that doesn't suit what you're looking to do. And although I feel for you, I'm not sure.
I'm looking to keep my kid safe from getting his bad eye poked out because he trips and falls because his depth perception, because he has to get patched. His eye gets patched every single day for 2 hours. And it's the doctor's orders, and it's 2 hours every single day of this almost 3-year-old kid's life. So he goes outside. We kill the time with it by playing outside. Like I said, his depth perception's off. Aside from being a toddler that trips over his own 2 feet, he can't see as well as other 2.5-year-olds. So, what happens when he kicks a ball on our own property and runs over to gets it and trips and falls on this fence of the photos that you see that are jagged, they're wrought iron. They come to a point. Some of them are straight up, some of them are out at a 45, but they're all at impalement level for a 3-foot kid. I mean,
Kyle, it's just
got to be recourse for that. Go ahead.
Are those, so I saw those pictures in the packet. Are those, is that fence on, is that literally in the easement as well? Or help me understand where that thing is. I saw like some notes, but I couldn't fully tell.
Yeah, to show you how seriously I'm taking this, you know, before a decision was even made, I paid for a surveyor to come out here to stake out my property lines. He found the pins and I asked him to place stakes in between the pins so I could get a line of sight. And I think I tried to mark it up in my blue beam tool, sort of a line of sight in between where these stakes are. But if you stand between my pins and look down the line between the stakes, you'll see that some of the fence hangs over onto my property, some of it's on my neighbor's property, but I mean, give or take 6 inches to a foot on any section of that fence, and it could be on my neighbor's property or in the easement. My kid could trip and fall on our property and still hit his face on this fence, the fence that is existing there.
Well, I think.
So I think, you know,
Go ahead, Keith.
I think, Kyle, in order to give you any fair support, you'd really have to look at the information that was presented so that, you know, we can actually move forward, because we hear your cry, and it's definitely, you know, it's serious, but at the same time, based on our guidelines, we still have to look at the other information that is available so that we can come to some decision in terms of how we can support you. And I know you're looking for some sort of response in terms of a way forward, but we would still have to, at the end of the day, we still have to look at that information, you know, to speak to it intelligently and give you back something that you can take away and that we can also have documented in terms of having followed protocol where this is concerned. You know, like Matt said, it's not like we're not gonna just gonna ignore your cry, because we've had other situations where we had to take it on a case-by-case basis, but the case-by-case also falls into the protocol of what we would do, given the guidelines and the parameters of our jurisdiction. So for sure, we would like to get back to you, but we will need some time to at least do the research, maybe come out to your property, take a look at it, so that we can put everything on the table and then discuss it objectively, so that we can be fair to you in terms of what support we can give you at this point in time.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, I'll be complicit with anything that resembles any level of support other than a hard no. You know, I know we're looking at preserving land conservation, but I'm also looking at preserving safety. You know, I'm not, my cry isn't, I want a nice looking fence in my backyard because I think I deserve it. It's, my cry is, I don't want my kid to trip and fall and land on his throat through a fence. That's what this call is. That's all this call is. That's the only reason for a fence. So.
Yeah, we'll take that. We'll take this offline. I want to, you know, obviously all of us want to review this conservation easement language, and probably take a look at some of the, you know, the site map, and you know, it might, as Keith had alluded to, it might require you know, a quick visit to look at things. But first things first is we'll take this and we'll review this in the coming weeks, and you know, certainly in the meantime, feel free to reach out to Kim and the planning department if you have any questions or comments, or want to get in touch with us.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. So I welcome you guys to come on out here anytime. Will this be an action item on the next agenda, or what should I expect from here?
Yeah, I would think this will probably be another action that we would take probably on the next, either the next meeting or the meeting after that.
Okay, please let me know what you need from me, because I'm spring's around the corner and everyone's got cabin fever and COVID fever, and all we want to do is play outside together. That's it. That's all we want.
Understood. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming before us tonight, and I understand the the situation you're in, and definitely it is a heartfelt situation. So we'll do everything we can to try to help you.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Kyle. Have a good night.
Yep, you too.
All right,
Thank you.
take care.
Bye bye. Okay, a couple items before we sign off YouTube. Meeting minutes. Did we get a chance to read meeting minutes?
I missed the last one, so I can't comment on them.
Actually, we have 2 meeting minutes. Let me pull it up. We have 2. Bear with me. So approval of February 2nd and approval of March 2nd. Matt, were you there for March? Let's start with March 2nd. Were you there March 2nd?
March 2nd, no, that was last. I had to leave after about 10 minutes, so
Okay.
I missed the bulk of it.
Okay. Okay. Keith, Matt, did you get a chance to look through meeting minutes?
I think I looked at the last one. I didn't see anything that jumped out.
Same.
Okay. Well, let's batch these together. So looking for a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
All right. Okay. Any other items that we want to cover tonight? I think we got everything on the agenda.
I saw there was a email about the write-up for the spring for the village.
Yes. I liked it. It looked pretty good. I think there's going to need to be some pictures put in, it looked like.
Yeah.
But I think it looked good. So nice job, guys.
Tim didn't do any of it. It was all me. For the record.
What I heard. Not what I heard.
Funny.
Pat's gonna draw
Kudos
pictures.
to you then.
Oh man.
Want some nice land pictures in there.
Yeah, he's gonna have his kids draw
Mhm.
pictures of trees.
Oh
Good.
man, that's funny. Good stuff. Maybe our next one, honestly, should be on easements, huh? We're getting so much stuff about it. Just saying.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because Ed and I talked about that. I think we have to make a separate explicit effort on educating people, and then making it a real requirement, make it a real pain for developers that want to put, because they really, it's part of the real estate agent, whoever's in part of the whole front end of this transaction, have to let people know, because it weighs in. Some people don't care. Some people just don't care.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But to your point, if the real estate agent is representing the buyer on that side of the transaction, you would think that they would be the ones that would want to express that, so that their buyer would understand before they get into it. And then they bought the house, and now all of a sudden, like in his case, I go to the town, I want to put a shed in, now they tell me I can't. What do you mean? So I think it's very important, that education piece. But you wrestle with, how do you do that? Obviously, we could put something in the newsletter, which certainly, at least it's out there for people to look and understand. And perhaps we give them, if you have questions, please call planning and building, or something, a contact. I don't know if maybe we should reach out, and I'm almost thinking through Kathy Rayburn's group with business development and whatever, and maybe she can go to the realtors in town and say, hey, look, we're having a problem. You guys really need to, when you're dealing on the buyer side of things, make sure they understand this. And you're right. For some, I might screw deals. Because they'll say, oh, I don't want that. I thought I had 200 feet of property I could do whatever I wanted with. I bought this, right? And all of a sudden, oh yeah, but there's a 50-foot easement. What do you mean? What are you talking about? So
Yeah.
I think there's got to be an education piece in there somewhere, and I don't know what it looked like, but certainly it's something we need to start migrating towards, I think.
What about a webinar or something like that?
Yeah, it could be something. I mean, or you know what? At some point, do we put something together like, we put the native plant manual? Is there hey, if you're going to buy a home in Victor, this is what you need to know. And you have,
Great idea.
Well,
planning
funny
and
should,
building.
funny
or-
should say that, Ed, because
sorry?
I'm thinking that maybe, sorry, I'm saying funny should say that because when you look on the Town of Victor website, is there anywhere on that speaks to that? In the theory, how we have like the recycling, and that it's unique in the Town of Victor, how we have a recycling center, blah, blah, blah. Should we have something that speaks about real estate in the Town of Victor, and that it's most properties have a conservation in it, and that if you were to buying, I mean, it sounds like you're kind of undermining the whole trade, but at the same time, the flow of people being misled with regards to what they're investing in. Actually, these are very bad taste. You want people to come to Victor and be supportive and want to make sure they protect the village or the town. But with all these bad deals, they're like, I just get a raw deal and I bought a place that I can't even use.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. But you're right. We can look at some way of doing that.
And the answer is probably all of the above, right? Let's get a voice newsletter out there. Let's get something on the website. I think your idea with Kathy is great. And it's not necessarily a negative. It's look at what Victor's doing to, preserve the reason that people are moving out there, et cetera. We're trying to preserve that look, but to do that, here's what it might look like if you're looking to buy in Victor. Part of your property may have to look the way it does today. So don't buy it thinking you're going to go in and clear it all, or put a shed, put a fence, put a pool.
Right. As we all know, it goes with the land, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the easement stays with the land, whether I buy it and I sell it to Matt, and Matt sells it to Keith, and so on and so forth. That stays the same. That doesn't move. So when you think about in the very beginning of the transaction, the developer is signing off on, yeah, that's fine. I'm good with that. Whatever conservation. Yeah, sure. But that then doesn't translate to the first homeowner, the second homeowner, the third homeowner down as the transactions conspire. So yeah, I think there's got to be an education piece. We're gonna have to start working on this because it comes up a lot, right?
Yeah.
Planning board, conservation board, zoning board of appeals, we're spending a lot of time dealing with education.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we went from having virtually no signage to, I think it was under Kate's watch, we got to the standardized 4x4 post. Now I'm even thinking the standard 4x4 post, and then we got to rocks or trees or other things. But even those standardized 4x4 posts, what's the shelf life on a pressure treated 4x4, right? So those things are going to start rotting eventually, and then someone's going to kick it off, and then we're back to square one again. Even with the right intentions, let's be sure we mark these. So it's going to continue to be an issue.
Yeah, I agree. Jokingly, I was talking to Andrew. I said, what you should do? Make the developer put up a snow fence, like those bright orange snow fence with the metal stake saying, this is where your property ends from a conservation easement perspective. Even though the stake is 20 yards behind it, this is the line.
Yeah.
We've talked about that with, I think, Jeff Smith. I think he was going to try to tie out different colors or one of those projects.
Yeah.
They talked about putting different colors and, for the lot lines and then for the easement.
Stake. Yeah.
And then Ed, I'm not sure if you were on the meeting, but we also talked about creating some sort of sign that we have in the village that the developer has to put up maybe at the beginning, right? So new homes, 300, or 30 brand new. And then beneath that, conservation easements in place, ask the whatever, ask your agent, about it or something. Right. So at least we can get them at the build. But then Ed, your point is spot on that it's easy to control the builders, right? Because they pretty much have to comply with what we want. But you start passing these homes owner to owner to owner, it's way
Gets
out of our
lost in
control.
translation, yeah. And then we have the issue where then code enforcement goes out and somebody's built this big, huge, whatever inside of an easement, and they're like, what do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess our pitch should be understanding real estate and conservation, understanding real estate and conservation easement in Victor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
more to come.
I think we should take an actual agenda item maybe next time and come up with some more, some more ideas. Make it a brainstorming session. More than just this. Maybe we can put it up in front of the meeting or something like that. But I do think we should put some time into this and come up with some items that are actionable.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it should be a recurring item in the bulletins.
Yes.
Because you do it one time and it's missed, and then no one sees or hears about it for a little while, and there's something that's ongoing. So maybe it should be a small blurb under the conservation board, advisory board, blah, 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 understanding easement and real estate in Victor, the town of Victor, and then we say something else.
Yep.
Because it's ongoing, so it needs to be repeated over and over and over again.
Don't disagree with you.
Yeah, it's a paradigm. We got to keep driving it to build the edification of folks. So let's continue. Let's put this on an action, and let's put it on the agenda next week or next week, next meeting.
Good.
Sounds good. And I'll review it again with the town board.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. Before we go off live, let's close the meeting. So looking for
motion.
I'll second.
I knew you were gone.